The consulting management team met in Chicago from March 9th through the 11th, and through that, our mission was to solve one problem. And specifically today, our problem was we needed to define a consistent, agreed upon approach to employee ranking, which yields quality and promotion standards and recommendations. So with that process, we also looked at what tools did we have in place today, what skill set measurements do we have in place that we can leverage off of and perhaps build from. And what we do know is that we have the structure that HR has put into place with the structure for the check-in conversations. We also know that there has been a tremendous amount of work been put into the competency framework, and that's really our launching pad for working for getting to a ranking process and ultimately to the employee ranking. So where we decided to start with our employee ranking, and the third piece is that HR has also eventually would like us to get to a 9-box ranking. And so we're making that our output, and how do we get the data to complete that 9-box accurately. So we started assessing what is the information we need to gather and assess on our employees. And we've got two different groupings of information. One, we're evaluating performance, and the second is we're evaluating potential. And from a performance perspective, one of the key areas that we're looking at is how is their performance on a project. And then a second area that we look at in terms of performance is also their documented goals and their utilization. So we have some, and in terms of their potential, this is more of a subjective point of view. We're looking at attitude, both into how they perform their functions and their attitude while they're on the project, but also how is their attitude in general as a Guidewire employee. And we're also looking at something called potential, and is this employee taking an active role in their career management and, for lack of a better term, branding, and are they marketing themselves and doing things in their own best interest that's also going to help to move them along their career path. So we have to look at where can we get this data. And obviously from the consulting management team, one of the areas that we've identified right away is how are we going to effectively get information about project. And we know that information is going to be coming externally from the project managers and other key sources, potentially even the CIMs and engagement director level. And the type of information we're going to want from the project is how is this individual performing in terms of business. And business means as far as customer relationships, but it also means in terms of insurance knowledge and domain knowledge. Certainly we're going to be ranking that individual on their technical abilities and their attitude as it relates to their work on the project. We also divided into what we're kind of calling Guidewire areas, and this is areas that we as consulting managers feel we have data that we can access, and then our personal interactions with the consultants that will help us rank these particular areas. Again, we're looking at their goals. They've completed them, they haven't completed them, what's been the roadblocks and so on. That's going to come through conversation. We have their utilization levels, the data is there. That's also an opportunity to discuss when we get into attitude. We're really in attitude, in this case, we're really talking about admin function. Are we getting time cards in on time? Are they being entered correctly so that the utilization is reflected appropriately? And overall, are they performing on time and meeting the expectations of us as leaders and our relationship together on time? And we've already talked somewhat about potential as far as do we see that this employee is taking an active role in branding themselves and getting their message out and helping to create positive buzz to get them the next great opportunity. So we've got these criteria that we're going to measure, and then we had to have a standard scale so that the key point on this also is that we're consistent and that every consultant is measured in the same way and that the consulting managers are using the same approach and the same scale, rating scale for measurement of those variables. So we have a scale that's pretty much been used at Guidewire. We've tweaked it a little bit from a 1 to 5 scale, from a does not meet to an outstanding. The number 2 would be a learning or somewhat meets the objectives. 3 is a solid, meeting expectations. 4 is exceeds, and again 5 is outstanding. Outstanding is really that role model individual. But what we found was we're able to assess these individuals at the criteria level, but then if we want to be able to translate this data to the 9-box, the 9-box is on a 3 rating scale of a high, medium, and low. So we simplified it and said, okay, if they're a 1 and a 2, they're going to be low on the 9-box. The ranking's going to be a medium for a 3, and then if they've received a 4 or a 5, they'll be in the high category on the 9-box. So the next thing that we did is we said, how often are we going to record and document this feedback? And we're thinking that we need to be documenting it or evaluating it on a quarterly level, but then at the time that we're looking at salary adjustments and or potentials, we may need to be looking at this data from a rolling 4 quarters so that we have more of a holistic view of that employee's performance over a decent amount of time. And this is the rating scale that we're using for measuring the internal competencies, the guidewire competencies. So have they achieved their goals? Where are they on the utilization? What has their attitude been? And then earlier we talked about potential. And so we would go across, and for each quarter we would put in a value. To take that ranking into the 9-box, we've agreed that for the performance axis, we are going to use the 5 variables related to performance, sum them and average them. For potential, we're going to be taking the 2 potential variables, sum them and average them. So for example, we have a performance rating of an average of 3.4. That would put the individual on the medium scale in terms of performance. If their potential, however, averaged out to a 4, that would put them in the high box of the potential matrix axis. So if we put this individual in the box, they fit into the medium-high potential box. One other thing to point out on the 9-box is we can think of this as the potential. These are people we weed out in terms of performance. These are the people we feed. At this point now, we just want to wrap it up real quick. So we have showed you how we take this 9-box and we've developed a process that, using the tools that we already have in place, we have come up with a consistent process to identify to our consultants how they're being evaluated, what are the criteria on which they're being evaluated, and how it leads to the rankings. At this point, we wanted to just share this information with you so that we could get your buy-in, give you some heads up as what we're thinking as we're moving along the way. It's certainly a lot easier to watch a video than it is to read a long document.